Hi, I'm Joe Dalton and welcome to Breakthrough Brands, the show that tells how Ireland's entrepreneurial DNA is rebooting the country one successful startup at a time. In this series, we'll demystify the process of starting up your own enterprise and growing it into a successful business by sharing the inspirational, educational, real-life experience of ordinary Irish business people. We talk to entrepreneurs who have taken control of their own destiny by doing what they love. On today's show, we have Brendan Maguire. Brendan is an experienced digital marketing specialist, lecturer and keynote speaker with over 15 years' experience in the digital marketing arena. And Brendan, welcome to Breakthrough Brands. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. As you know, we've been friends for a good while now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your knowledge in marketing blows my mind all the time. It really does. And some of the guests that we've had here on before have been students of yours.
That's right, actually. Both Thomas Crotty and Robert Farrell both have passed through my classroom. So
you're the big daddy. You're the big hitter that we're having on here today. The big hitter.
I wouldn't say that. Both of them were very knowledgeable before I got to meet them. So they're both exceptionally clever people.
Tell me, how did you get into marketing? What led you down the path?
Well, it's actually, I suppose it's an interesting story because when I was 16, when I'd done my Leaving Cert, and I'd done my degree in business, and I actually had my degree by the time I was 19. So I said to myself, I'm a bit too young to go out into the workforce. So I looked around and, this is the mid-90s here, and I was thinking, right, this IT stuff, I'll try that out. So I went and I'd done a postgrad diploma in IT and DCU and learned how to program and web design and all this kind of stuff. And when digital marketing came along, it just seemed like the perfect marriage of both my business background and my IT background as well. Particularly because websites in the late 90s and the early 2000s were very basic. As you remember, we had page titles like home, about, services, and there was very often was IT staff that looked after websites instead of business professionals or marketing professionals. So it was something that I was always thinking of from a very early stage in terms of the marketing potential of your
they
website.
were designed like a brochure.
Yeah, very much so.
But,
and you're talking very standard, maybe 5 or 6 page websites built with Dreamweaver or something like that. So
that's a while back now.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
So they still use Dreamweaver for building the templates and the teams for a content management system now. But no one, you wouldn't very seldomly build a full website with Dreamweaver these days.
No, it's like, but it just going back into the marketing end of it. It is a tool, and it's like yesterday I had Alice Hyman on, and she was saying, the problem out there is that sales teams and marketing teams should work together as one instead of fighting each other. One should do this on it as well.
Absolutely.
So you got into the digital marketing. And how'd you get into lecturing then and guest speaking?
Well, it was actually, I always wanted to kind of teach and train. That's something I always really kind of found interesting. And even going back to college, I'd find myself helping my friends with projects and stuff like that. So from a very early stage, it was something I wanted to do. So I went back again and I'd done a higher diploma in education to kind of learn about, I suppose, how to teach and kind of the whole process of learning and learning styles and curriculum assessment and all of that. So I've been lucky now. I've worked in a fair few colleges. Obviously Blackrock Ford Education Institute would be my main port, but I've also worked with Dublin Business School, IT Tallaght, National College of Ireland formerly, Griffith College, IBAT.
You worked with them on, you were even working with Coca-Cola as well,
I had
the Marketing Institute and everything
Marketing
as well.
Institute of Ireland, the Digital Marketing Institute, Sureskills. So I've got quite a wide array of training.
I take you as the oracle. You know that you are. If I have a question, I'm on the phone to you and go, look, I have a client here and I'm just trying to figure something out, and you always go, yeah, that's a great idea, Joe. Run with it.
Yeah.
So marketing is changing with the internet. Companies now are starting to understand that they have to have this presence online. But as we've spoke outside, is the online buying behaviour is changing.
Yeah.
How, as a company, what should one do?
Okay, well, first thing is to understand that, the consumer, your Joe Public, the way they behave both offline and online, the same person is different. So, you know what I mean? I could have a customer that goes into a store and does a certain thing, but then goes online and behaves in a very, very different way. So the online customer, they can talk back now, and they can even bite back, because they have this facility now to vent and kind of post their bad experiences online.
But do you know, if someone goes into a shop or into a restaurant or something, they shop with their feet, they don't go back again?
Yeah, absolutely.
But when people are buying online, are they hiding as well behind the screen if they want to make a complaint, or are people still...
people very well, it depends, you see, because there's a lot of people who will just walk away and never come back, but there's a lot of people who'll be very vocal, and LinkedIn themselves have done research on this, as well as Salesforce, and customers are much more likely to share a negative experience than a positive experience online. So you could go into a restaurant and be treated like royalty, but be more than likely not going to share that experience. However, if you go in and you're treated terribly, well, you're going to go out onto Twitter or social media and say, never go into that restaurant again. So that's something that you have to be mindful of as a business, particularly when it comes to social media, because there's still a lot of businesses that don't fully understand what the role of social media is in the wider scheme. And social media can play a huge role, not just for driving traffic to your website, but also from a testimonials point of view, from a reviews point of view. And again, when we talked about consumer buyer behaviour there, you have the standard model of consumer buyer behaviour, where you have problem recognition, so you identify a buying need. Stage 2 is information search, so I need to find information about that. Now, that could almost be called the Google search stage now, because over 92% of people start that buying need, that information search stage, on Google. So, effectively, Google's become one of the biggest sales brochures in the world. But then there's another stage. There's the evaluation of alternatives. And the reality is, conversions and sales are not the same. You know what I mean? There's different types of products, different types of services. Yeah. Some of them are cheap. If I want to go and buy a book, I'm not going to maybe review 5 or 6 websites to find the best price of a book that might only be worth 10, 15 euro. I'll probably just go with the one I come across first and that delivers to my location. But if you have a high involvement purchase, a much more expensive purchase, well, then there's much more research involved. And this is where social media and just your overall marketing approach can help, I suppose, deliver the best solution for your company, for your products and services that you have on offer, particularly if it's a high involvement.
So, say I'm looking to purchase a TV. Yeah. Okay, so I go online, and everyone now starts the process on their mobile phone. Unless the 90% say started on a mobile phone. So I'll go on my mobile phone and I look up TVs. Yeah. And I really can't read all the information that's on that. So is the consumer then jumping onto the computer to continue on their search?
Yeah, and very often they're jumping onto their mobile to continue their search, because there's a term called showrooming, which is where I'm in a store. I'm in an electronic store. I see a television. I think it looks good, but I'm not sure. It's expensive. So I take out my phone and I start doing the research in the store. And this is rising all the time, the number of people that are doing this. And what customers want, what consumers want at this point, is to be validated. They want to stop their search. People don't necessarily like searching and trolling through lots of websites looking for lots of information. So as marketers, we need to make it easy for them to find information that they need that will make them comfortable about making that purchasing decision. So, testimonials, reviews, and again, video. The use of video there as well can be very, very useful, because very often people want to just see a quick overview, a quick demonstration of what this product might include or might entail. So is it a smart TV? And if so, what kind of apps can be used? Because some smart TVs don't take Netflix and so on. So these are all questions that people would want to maybe know about.
In the behaviour then, is it adding to impulse buying, or is it stopping people from impulse buying as well, all the research?
Well, it comes back to the product. So if it's a low involvement purchase, if it's something that isn't very expensive, then it's the digital equivalent of an impulse purchase. And, there's a lot made online, and there's a perception out there that all conversions are the same. But they're not. So simply, and the Google Analytics makes it very easy to set up conversions, okay? But most of those conversions are very basic. To really have a proper conversion set up, you want the payment and revenue information coming in as well. And Google have a really good demo account. Well, it's actually a real account. It's the Google Merchandise Store that anybody can actually access. And it's a fully configured account, so you can actually go in there and see the values of the conversions. Because when I hear people say, "Oh, I made 10 conversions from Facebook, but only 2 from Google," or vice versa, that doesn't matter. What was the value of those conversions? You know what I mean? Maybe those 10 conversions brought in €100, and the 2 Google ones brought in 500. So you have to look at the value of the sale as opposed to just the actual quantity of conversions that were made.
We're just going to take a short break. This show was sponsored by Harris Myers, your sales and marketing agency, helping you develop a better sales and marketing pipeline. Okay, so how do people then, everyone coming onto a site, and you're looking at the bounce rate, and you don't want to be targeting everybody that's coming onto your site because some of them might have come on by mistake or something.
Absolutely.
So can you segment?
Yeah, I like
it. Yes.
That's kind of.
That's kind of. Could you put Daniel? Could you go out and do a .com on that word, please? So, can you break them down to who's been on my site, looking through X amount of pages over a period of time, and only target them?
Yes, is the answer to that. And again, this would be a very important part of, I suppose that strategy I was talking about for those high involvement purchases. It's very unlikely for individuals to convert on their first visit. So most people who find your website more than likely going to be on a mobile device as well. And even though the figures are rising every year in terms of the amount of conversions that happen on a mobile device, most of them still happen on a desktop. So very often what happens is their first point of contact with your website would be on a mobile device. So what we want to do is we want to try and identify and kind of turn that visit into a relationship, identify the potential leads. Now, there's the obvious one, the call to actions, where they, based on their own actions, they could choose to sign up to an email list or leave their details or request a callback.
Download a book or something.
Download a booklet, whatever. But we can digitally identify some people as well based on the behaviour. And again, this isn't standard Google Analytics here. Google Analytics at its basic level, and when you kind of set it up first, is quite basic. Now, it's still great, don't get me wrong. But there's a tool called Google Tag Manager, which allows you to create advanced tagging options. So what I can do is, rather than just simply target, as you said, every single person who's ever visited my website, which is inefficient, because if you actually look at your Google Analytics stats, apart from the bounce rate, the time on site, if you look at the amount of people that spend between 0 and 10 seconds on your website, it is pretty demoralising stuff when you see that figure.
You feel very sad.
It's quite high.
Yeah.
So even though they might have clicked on a couple of links, they haven't been on your website long. So what we can do is we can say, okay, if they spent maybe a minute on my website or 2 minutes on my website and visited maybe 3 or 4 pages, that's one potential group or audience I could set up. Alternatively, what I could do, which is even more effective from a kind of, if I'm kind of driven for sales and leads, is to only target people who start the goal, the conversion goal process.
Yeah.
So in other words, the goal funnel is the number of stages between starting a purchase and completing it. So I can actually drop little cookies onto a user's machine if they start that process. And the very important thing is to remember, if they go ahead and complete that purchase, that we need to send another command to kill the first cookie.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll start seeing ads telling them this is 20% off what you just bought, and that's not going to go down well.
But that's it. It's like a lot of my clients now, I tell them, and we've discussed this before, is remarketing. So,
yes,
exactly. putting those little cookies on the person, picking up their IP address and then following them around. One of the advantages that we see as well is, and as you said, through social media, is using the pixels on Facebook as well. So connecting these all together to drive the person.
Yeah.
Statistics are coming out that someone, before they even come into your store or make a purchase, to just have an idea in their head that they're looking for a TV or a kitchen or something, it's 50 points before they even actually make that commitment. And if they know you, it can take up to 9 to, I think it was 9 to 15 points before they actually make that sale.
Yeah, and as I said, depending on the complexity of the purchase, you know what I mean, the process itself can take quite some time. And very often what's happening now is that, consumers are self-qualifying. You know what I mean? And this is actually very useful from a business point of view because, the days of the salespeople having to go out and generate cold calls and leads, okay, it's still there, but it's kind of diminishing it slightly because what's happening now is we give all the information out there for consumers to make that decision. They'll qualify themselves. They'll be looking, they're doing their research online now. And it goes back to the testimonials and reviews because they're a form of currency for certain markets and businesses.
Social proof.
Absolutely. Yeah. Social proofing. And this allows people to say, okay, yes, this does exactly what I want it to do. And it kind of helps with that purchase decision.
It's interesting when we talk about social proof and we talk about testimonials. Mm-hmm. Do you know the amount of people that will see testimonials, they won't read them, but because they see there's testimonials there, they go, oh yeah, this is a good product to buy.
Yeah, it's a good point as well. You know what I mean? Because again, I suppose after a certain amount, the number of testimonials you have doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? As long as they're there, they might read one or two, but chances are they won't read them all. So, again, it's making sure that you have that information well presented for individuals to make it easy. There's, again, going back to the consumer buying behaviour model, there's a dynamic customer journey or dynamic consumer journey model now from an online perspective. And at a basic level, we have the same. We have the same stages. But what we have now is at each stage, we can go deeper. We can go deeper in terms of research depending on what the purchase is and depending on the user. And particularly when it comes to the information search and the evaluation of alternatives, most of the I suppose activity in terms of the sales journey is spent there, and customers are looking for that information in terms of reviews, pictures, videos, testimonials, all of that. It all helps with that decision. And from a marketing point of view, if I'm building my website and I know it's a high involvement purchase, there's no point trying to push people straight into the purchase. You know what I mean? There's no point trying to get that purchase straight away. So, great if they do, but the chances of someone, let's say if it's a holiday, clicking on my ad and spending $2 or $3 in the one visit is very unlikely. So we need to cultivate that relationship, build it up over time.
Build them up on that. So we were talking about consumer behaviour there. One of the things that companies don't realise, and I just want to touch off this quickly, is they don't realise how expensive all this is. People think the internet is free, and they think that they can post a website up online, and they used to be able to create a Facebook page, and now no one sees your page unless you pay for it. And the content and the SEO and the backlinks and building in the Google AdWords and the tag managers, like every company needs this. Yeah. Even the small SMEs, but some of them can't afford it.
Yeah.
So
well, I suppose what I would say is that one of the useful things about digital marketing is that there is a lot of inbound options which are free. Now, it's very difficult. I'm not going to lie. It's very difficult to get there. But what we can also do as well is we can set daily budgets. So, from let's say from a search advertising point of view, from a conversions, it is expensive. But depending on the keywords you're bidding on, there is differences there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you know what you're doing with, particularly with search advertising and particularly Google AdWords, with the whole idea is that it's not just the highest bidder wins. It's something called quality score.
Yeah.
So, and quality score is awarded per keyword. So the more relevant your ad and your keywords are to the user search, the less you have to pay, essentially. And I suppose very often, if you've done advertising for a while, you work out what works.
Yeah, definitely.
And after a while, what you start doing then is, rather than kind of spending a fortune on your advertising, you just focus in on what works. I'll give you an example. There was a campaign that I worked on once, and they had a small budget, €200. And if one person was to sign up, it was worth €200 basically. So it was the budget was one customer, and they got 17 customers on this one campaign.
Excellent.
And when we actually drilled down into the detail, we could actually see that €50 essentially drove, I think it was about 13 of those 17 sales.
Yeah.
So in the future, they could actually run campaigns for €50, or, well, in fairness, they were doing so well, I think they were spending a lot more after that. But that was an exception, I suppose. It was an exceptional type of business and market. But
the landscape is changing.
Yeah.
It's like if you were running AdWords or were running, social media campaigns 2-3 years ago, you were getting a better ROI. But because everyone's now fighting for this space, it's getting more expensive, and the tactics and your strategies are changing as well.
Yeah.
So, and just going back into the social, on LinkedIn, I'll get people who are emailing me and go, "Hi, Grant, can I join you?" And I go, "Yes." And then they go, "I want to sell to you, buy this.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, hold on. People buy off people, and people want to have a conversation or understand or get to know you before they actually make that purchase. So marketing is get to know you, and then the salespeople in the business are the ones then, you got to know us, let's have a chat. I used to believe that it was all, it used to be outbound, and then everyone was inbound, and that word which, I scratch my head on it sometimes. But if you just evolve and just want to run everything on inbound, it's expensive and it can take a very, very long time.
Oh, it's a long game.
It's
totally the long game.
You need the sales guys there to be making those calls, but you need the marketing to help it.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee of success. Like practices like SEO, which are obviously very popular and buzzwords in many ways for people, because they think, yeah, we're doing SEO, we're going to get found. But the reality is,
it's getting harder.
It's much, much harder now, and the content is only one part, as you know, of the whole SEO process, and the quality factors and the relevancy factors on SEO are much, much bigger now.
Yeah.
So there's a much greater emphasis now on how many people are linking to your site, how many people visit your site, how many people are clicking on your links, and then also the expertise, the authority, and the trust aspects as well, which is big for Google at the moment. So Google want to see, I suppose, all of these kind of authority factors associated with your website, because, as you said, everybody's doing it now. You've got a lot of people optimized for certain keywords. So how does Google determine now, after we know that, okay, this
the
website,
person that's pushing more content?
That's part of it. But as we know, there's
social media and everything.
There's so many factors with it.
But it's a question of, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So someone says, right, I just want to do AdWords. Great, you do the AdWords, you stop the AdWords, you're gone. And someone says, I'm just writing content and not doing AdWords. I believe you need to be doing everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything.
And that's where there's a number of different strategy frameworks that are advocated, and there's a guy called David Chaffee, Dr. David Chaffee, and he would be, I suppose, for digital marketing what Philip Kotler would be for marketing. And he advocates a number of different frameworks. Now, there's one called SOSTAC, which is actually a framework from a DIT lecturer called Paul Smith. And then there's another one called RACE. Very often they can actually go hand in hand. But the RACE model for me particularly works well because it's logical. So first of all, you have your reach, which is about driving traffic, so, and also building awareness, but primarily from a digital point of view, driving traffic. So that's your advertising, that's your inbound, that's everything. So you want to try and drive as much traffic to your website as possible.
Yeah.
Now we have them on our website, we are on to A and C, act and convert. So this is all about then trying to make our websites more interactive, having very clear call to actions, identifying what we want people to do.
Follow that path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're back to our landing pages and making sure we've got good designs. And again, understanding our customers as well. You know what I mean? So do we have a review section? Do we have a testimonial section? Has any thought been given to that? So again, we need to try and make it easy for people to find information that will help them make that purchase decision. Case studies
and everything, yeah.
And on that act as well, that's where we start having our cookies and our advanced tagging, so that we drop all of these in. And then ideally they'll come back and they'll convert, or they'll convert. If it's let's say a low involvement purchase, they're more likely to convert on one of those first visits. And again, I think I've told you the story before, I won't name them, but an individual very unhappy with Facebook because it didn't work, it didn't drive conversions.
Yeah.
But the reality is, very often what's going to happen is people are going to find your website on Facebook and then come back on a desktop. And that kind of cross-device tracking is getting better, but it's still not great, So who's to say that some of the conversions that you've been getting in the recent times didn't originally start on Facebook? And then just to go back to the race model, engage is the final stage. And that's the post-visit engagement. And this is where we have our traditional email marketing campaigns where we can, the people who signed up on our website, we can send them emails, we can obviously email customers. But what we can also do as well is we can retarget with that list that I was talking about earlier, those people who started the journey. We can retarget them, particularly on Facebook, because Facebook newsfeed ads are much more prominent, they're much more visible than display ads, which suffer from banner blindness issues.
Yeah.
So click-through ratios there about 2% on average. So it's another way. And then finally, what we could even do is we could take our email subscription list and import it into Facebook as a Facebook audience. And it's approximately about 60% of people who have signed up to an email list will have the same email associated with their Facebook accounts. So it's another way of potentially reaching people who have shown or demonstrated an interest in your brand or business.
It's as a consumer, I often sit down and go, okay, say I've just made a purchase, I kind of analyse how did I come to making that purchase, and I've realised if I buy in a book, I'll read a book once a week. They all seem to funnel through Facebook. So someone will pop up on Facebook and I'll watch one of their videos or I'll read something, go, okay, and then I'll jump on to see has this person got a book. And then I'll go to Apple and I'll download the book and listen to the book on Apple. And then I'm listening to them all the time. And then I'll go into doing a bit of research, and then I'll go onto YouTube to see if they have on YouTube or something. And then I'll go, oh, they have a course or they're selling something small, and then I'll buy it. And that's probably maybe over about 6-7 months.
Yeah,
I'll do that on
and that's the ideal journey, because you want to bring a visitor to a loyalist or an advocate for your brand, and that's another further stage on the journey.
But if it's a TV or a computer, I'll walk into a shop, I'll have a look to see what they're doing, or I'll go online and punch in TVs and see what's up. I'll go to the shop, have a look, and then I'm him and haw between, do I buy it in the shop or do I buy this online? And that's my journey on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still always going to be that, and particularly for a device, like people like to feel it, to see it. That tangible kind of element is always going to be important.
What about service industries? So say we're talking about people who are buying products, but if someone is selling a service, how do you recommend they should go about?
Well, again, with service, we're back to reviews, testimonials, and the physical evidence side of the marketing mix. And again, a lot of the time with digital marketing focuses too much on maybe the promotional element of the marketing mix, where it's all just about the tools to reach customers. But digital marketing is marketing, it's still the same.
Remove that word digital.
Marketing. Absolutely. And, from a physical evidence point of view, we need to kind of make sure that we have that physical evidence of our business, of our services. And again, we're back to testimonials.
Yeah.
And again, when it comes to visitors to our website, we're trying to convert them, into a lead as opposed to a sale. So we need to kind of try and offer some form of incentive for people to leave their details. And there is always the what's in it for me factor when people are looking to sign up to something. You need to kind of give them a good reason why they should leave their details, or we could obviously kind of use the other targeting options that we were talking about earlier.
But it's also it's getting that trust, it's getting them to give that information. But it is so fascinating.
It is, yeah.
I eat, sleep, and drink it all the time, as you know.
I know.
We're just going to coming to the end of the show here now. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
I suppose it's just to be kind of smart with your time, you know what I mean, and learn to say no. I think that was one of the things I kind of struggled a bit at the very early stages, where I'd want to take on everything, but sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and say, is this job right for me, or maybe recommend someone else for it. But I mean, sometimes you can overextend yourself, you can bite off more than you can chew. So I think trying to make sure that you have a nice sustainable model would be the best advice.
Yeah, time is so precious to us. Yeah. What book would you recommend for someone to read?
There's a couple. There's a good one called.
You get to pick one.
Oh, okay. That's Sophie's choice here now. I'll go Irish. The Art of Digital Marketing by Ian Dodson, who was one of the founders of the Digital Marketing Institute.
Brilliant.
So I'll give him a plug
on it.
Yeah.
And where, if I know that you're doing keynote speaking now, and if a company wants to get you out and talk to the staff to create that idea, where can people locate you? Where can they get in touch with you to call out and talk to their staff?
They can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So just Google Brendan Maguire, search Brendan Maguire on LinkedIn, and just send me a connection request and get in touch with me through LinkedIn. It's probably the best.
Sound excellent. And a song. What song would you like us to play out with today, and why you're picking that song?
Okay. Something from Little Mix from my daughter Molly, because she loves Little Mix.
Brendan,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on to Breakthrough Brands.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
No, it's been a pleasure as well.
You and I and nobody